has not been used that much or often, especially recently, but it should not be on our books. It's offensive to be on our books. And I want to thank the bipartisan co-sponsors, Representative Tatone, Representative Soper, in addition, Representative Herod, as well as Senator Moreno and Senator Tate. Really bipartisan common sense. We've come a long way here in Colorado since our days as the hate state. We really went from a place where LGBTQ discrimination was legalized in the 1990s to where we are today, where Colorado is a leader on LGBTQ equality. Last year, we banned the insidious practice of using conversion therapy on minors. This year, we're banning a similarly outdated and insidious practice. It's called the gay panic or transgender panic defense. This bill eliminates the use of a defendant's reaction to a victim's gender identity or sexual orientation as any kind of defense in a criminal trial. Even saying these words out loud should make people realize how absurd and outdated this standard was in the first place. A person's sexual orientation or gender identity are never a reason to excuse somebody from committing a crime against them. And this will make this law in Colorado. I want to thank One Colorado, all of the advocates that worked hard on this bill. This bill is a win in our continued efforts to make sure that we truly have a Colorado for all, where everyone is welcome no matter where they're from or who they love or who they are, their race, their religion, and everyone across our state is treated with mutual respect. I want to thank the sponsors, and we'll turn it over to Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Governor, for signing this bill today. This bill had a long journey in the legislature. There was a time where maybe we thought it wouldn't get done. Very pleased that we did get it across the finish line, and very thankful to Senator Tate and Representative Soper for really making the case that why this couldn't wait another year, that why we needed to address it now. And so very grateful for all the bipartisan support for this bill, as well as the many stakeholders, One Colorado, obviously, but also the District Attorney's Council, who saw the fallacy of these defenses and said we need to put an end to this practice. So thank you, Governor. This is a good day in Colorado where these absurd defenses are no longer going to be allowed on the books. With that, I will turn it over to my co-prime sponsor of the Senate, Senator Jack Teets.
Thank you, Dominic. Thank you, Governor, for support this bill. And it was an interesting journey. It went from one bill to a different bill. And I want to give a shout out to One Colorado and working with us to make it a priority in getting a new bill introduced, as well as the District Attorney's Council, Amanda Gall. In that dark day of a hearing, right when we went back into session after the COVID break, the other bill was scheduled for being killed. I'm fighting for the bill, and she's on the phone with me, texting at the hearing, providing me answers to tough questions from the committee chair. And from that day forward, we pushed hard to keep this bill alive and keep the concept alive. And the stakeholders pushed, and Representative Tatone wrote a very compelling letter to leadership in the Senate to make the case to have the bill reintroduced. It happened, and here we are today. Sometimes the journey is circular and winding, but we're here today nonetheless. Thank you everyone for the support of this very important policy change in the state of Colorado.
And I would also like to thank all the folks who had the bill before I did, when it was House Bill 1307, Representative Herod and Representative Soper's bill. And when the bill was killed in committee, I was really just kind of blown away because this bill doesn't cost anything, and it was really focusing on what I thought was happening outside the building at the time. The protests were going on for George Floyd, and they were talking about Black Lives Matter. And for me, what this bill really means is protecting Black trans women, who are the most vulnerable of the communities that we're trying to protect here. And I know of a case that happened in 2009. Angie Zapata was one of the cases that was held in Greeley, and they used this defense. Unfortunately, the jury didn't buy it, and they did convict the person. There was a preponderance of evidence that supported the case that that person did know, in fact, that they were trans, and they weren't surprised that she was trans, and then ended up killing her. But that's still no excuse. And also Matthew Shepard is another case that we've heard everyone's very familiar with, and this was a case that they used as defense as well. And here in Colorado, we're going to be the 11th state to ban this. And this is a really important moment that to have a bipartisan effort, almost unanimous in the General Assembly. This is a truly great example for other states to get along with this and move on and pass other bills in other states to ban this defense. So thank you to everybody on the bill and for being here today for this bill signing. I'm grateful to the governor. Thank you so much for signing this.
Thank you, Representative Tatone and other co-sponsors or co-prime sponsors. But I especially want to thank Representative Herod, who first came to me. This was at the beginning of the legislative session, and she said, "What do you think about gay and trans panic defense?" And I said, "I have to admit that I've never really heard much about it." The more I started learning about it, especially from the DA's Council, and I really want to thank Amanda Gall for her good work in helping write this bill, the more I was just shocked to learn that this was still on our books and it was still allowed. And I'm proud to stand here today with members of the LGBTQ community and to say that we, as Colorado, are eliminating a defense that goes against equality under the law. It goes against justice, and it goes against what Coloradans know to be right. It also goes against personal responsibility for one's actions. And with the governor's signature here in a few minutes, we're returning personal responsibility back. That a perpetrator, a defendant, has to be responsible for their own actions. That they can't use the victim's sexual identity as a defense no more. So thank you very much, and thank you, Governor, for signing this.
So I too just want to say thank you to the co-prime sponsors for working on this bill. But I also want to say thank you to the Urban Leadership Fellows who worked on this bill all summer and brought together over 50 stakeholders to talk about why this bill was so important. If you all hadn't have done that work, we wouldn't be able to have this conversation in the General Assembly. So thank you so much for all of your efforts there. I also want to give a shout out to Representative Danae Escar, who worked on this bill prior to it being introduced this year. Thank you also for your commitment. What I love seeing up here is the LGBTQ caucus standing united behind a plethora of bills that will directly impact our community. But the gay and trans panic defense is particularly important to me, and I know the Center in One Colorado as well, because of the disproportionate impacts it has on Black and brown transgender people in Colorado. You heard about the cases from Representative Tatone that we might have remembered from the news, but what you don't hear about are the tens and dozens of cases that happen that get pled out before they make the news. So I want to thank the DA's Council particularly, which is fun for me to do, for your tireless efforts to talk about why this does matter for Colorado, why we need to pass this defense now, why we need to do it this year, and why it needs to happen today. So thank you to everyone who worked so hard on this bill. Thank you, Representative Tatone, for taking this bill across the finish line and being relentless in your pursuit. I couldn't think of a better person to carry this bill across the finish line than you. So thank you, Governor Polis, as well, for always being a champion and for standing with the LGBTQ caucus, and maybe as a member of the caucus as well, for always standing up with us when we need you. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks again for being here. My name is Daniel Ramos, and I'm the Executive Director of One Colorado, and we're the state's leading advocacy organization for LGBTQ Coloradans and their families. Again, I just want to thank you for joining us today, because last year was a landmark year for LGBTQ Coloradans as we banned the practice of conversion therapy, and we made it easier for transgender and non-binary Coloradans to update their state identity documents. And this year is no different, as we're here to see Governor Jared Polis sign 4 pro-LGBTQ bills. This legislative session One Colorado championed legislation that helps us achieve our mission of closing the gap between legal and lived equality. I'm proud to stand here, nearly 51 years after the anniversary of the Stonewall riots and the beginning of the modern day LGBTQ movement, led by Black and brown transgender women, to see the signing of our bill to ban the gay and transgender panic defense. Before this bill, it was completely legal to use a defense to claim that someone's sexual orientation or gender identity caused a panic and led to an assault or a murder. As someone who grew up in Northeast Colorado and came out at the age of 13, just the year after Matthew Shepard was killed, this defense could have been used if something had happened to me in my local community. But today, Colorado becomes the 11th state to ban the use of the gay and transgender panic defense. While we are only the 11th state to ban this practice, I hope that other states take a lesson from our work in Colorado, where we had near unanimous support for the bill with only one legislator voting against this bill in the Capitol. Protecting LGBTQ people from assault and murder should be a nonpartisan issue, and we appreciate our bipartisan co-sponsors in getting this bill across the finish line. Thank you for standing with LGBTQ Coloradans and ensuring that no one can use a panic defense to target someone based on who they are or who they love. Thanks again for joining us today.
Congratulations, great bill. This next bill, the Birth Certificate Modernization Act, I want to thank Representative Escar and Senator Moreno for their important work that expands on legislation passed last year. This bill makes sure that people have the easier ability to change their birth certificate to reflect their true identity, which is very important for people to be able to be their true selves and to have that reflected on their identification documents. Signing this bill into law is a very important step forward in Colorado's journey to truly recognize our success as being Colorado for all. And with that, we'll turn it over to Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Governor. So you're going to hear a lot from me today because all 4 bills that we're signing today, I am the Senate sponsor on, so really earning that gay card. This one is exciting because obviously Colorado passed a landmark law last year, allowing transgender folks to update their birth certificate with their true gender identity, but also their other documents, and providing a non-binary option on our driver's licenses. Colorado is a leader in allowing everyone to express their gender identity on their government-issued documents. Everyone should have documents that reflect who they are, and so really excited that we're going to be able to correct just a minor thing that we needed to do in this to really allow the law to serve transgender Coloradans and non-binary Coloradans. So very grateful, Governor, for you signing this bill today, and I will turn it over to my co-prime sponsor, Representative Danae Escar.
I really don't have much more to add. This truly was a cleanup bill to make sure the landmark bill, Jude's Law, that we passed last year is actually able to be implemented in the way that we intended it to, and make sure that it is streamlined for transgender Coloradans who are trying to change their birth certificate or even their driver's license. So thank you, Governor, for signing this bill today to make sure that we can get this process moving in a way that is simple and easy for Coloradans just to continue living their true lives. So thank you.
This next bill is about a virus. No, not the virus that's on all of our minds right now, but the virus that has taken 6 million Americans from us over a 20-year period. This bill makes HIV prevention medications more easily available. by allowing them to be prescribed by a pharmacist. It prohibits insurance carriers from adding barriers to access medications. We know that PrEP is highly effective in preventing HIV. People should be able to get it from their pharmacist rather than have to go through the additional step of going through a doctor. And we know that a lot of the target market it needs to serve people in their 20s and 30s, they often don't have a medical home, so they don't have a doctor because they don't feel they need one. If you're watching and you're in your 20s, yes, you should have a doctor, but we know that in reality many don't. So this enables them to get HIV prevention services direct from a pharmacist, make it easier to have access to PrEP. And I want to thank the sponsors in One Colorado for all of their great work on this bill. I also want to express gratitude for working with our office on some minor changes that needed to be made consistent with other legislation that we were working on and a process for working with the legislature. So thank you. This is a huge step forward for Coloradans who are at risk of contracting HIV. And just because one virus is on our minds doesn't mean that the other virus isn't very much among us and real and remains a threat. And we have to be vigilant in the fight against HIV and AIDS, just as we are in the fight against coronavirus. I'm happy to turn it over to Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Governor. And today is a great day, everybody. It is not so often that you get to sign a bill that you know is definitively going to save lives here in the state of Colorado. And from the outset, that's what this bill's been all about, is saving lives. When I started work on this bill with my co-sponsors, in the front of my mind was all of the people in my life, my mom's friends, my older sister's friends who are no longer with us because of this virus. And it occurred to me that if we could save just one life by making access easier to these life-saving medications, that it was worth all of the work that we have done. And today is the culmination of that work. So I'd like to thank everybody who had a part in this, especially One Colorado, Allie Schmidt. She's very, very helpful. Also, the pharmacists, very helpful in making this thing happen. So want to thank the governor for taking this important step to ensure access to healthcare for all Coloradans, and we're saving lives, so let's do it. And I'll turn it over to Representative Jared.
Well, thank you, Representative Valdez. It's an honor to be able to carry this bill with you. I think you sharing your personal story specifically around how many lives could have been saved really did change the minds and the hearts of folks in the House. So I want to thank you for that. You know, we have the technology, we have the medical advances right now to save lives, right? But the stigma that exists within all of our communities is so deadly. And it's overriding people's opportunity to go get the care that they need to protect themselves. This bill allows one more avenue, one more venue for someone to step forward and say they need access to this life-saving medication, period. It's so straightforward and so simple, but the stigma has kept us from being able to move this forward in Colorado in the past. But again, with the strength of the LGBTQ caucus, and having a very unique governor in this country, we have been able to craft a bill that makes sense for Colorado and will save lives. And so I can't understate enough how important this bill is. It might have gone through without as much fanfare and whatnot, but when we have the medical advances to save lives, we should. This bill does that today, and I think having the signing here at the center is so important, because we know that when people know they have access to this life-saving medication, they will use it and they will save lives too. So thank you so much, you all, for being here. I appreciate the support and the signing of this bill today. Thank you.
Yeah, where's those pocket protectors when you need them? I just want to say thanks again for the bipartisan support for this bill as well. It underscores the fact that LGBT lives and rights and health are not partisan issues. All of us just want to live a full and productive life where we contribute back to society, and that should never be partisan. So very grateful that this bill had bipartisan support. This bill will save lives, but I also, as a budget guy, just want to talk about the cost avoidance of this bill. The more that we get people access to preventive medicine, and preventive measures, we all save money in the long run through our health premiums, through making sure that people are healthier and have better access to health care. So, Governor, thank you for signing this bill. And again, this is an incredibly important bill, especially in a time that we're living in right now, where there is a virus amongst us. Let's at least do what we can to put a stop to this other virus.
I just want to add that HIV and AIDS is not just a LGBT issue. Anybody who has unprotected sex or who shares intravenous needles is at risk of contracting HIV and AIDS. And the benefits of this bill go far beyond the LGBTQ community, and I think that's important to highlight, that it is not just gay males that are at risk of contracting HIV. Many other Coloradans are as well. We have one more bill we're signing here at the center. This bill creates the HIV Medications Program Rebate Fund as a cash fund. It resolves an issue about how we allocate rebates that we're able to distribute medications with for HIV and AIDS. I want to thank the sponsors for their important work: Representative Escar, Representative Landgraf, Senator Moreno, and Senator Coram for their bipartisan work on this important bill. And we'll begin with Representative Escar.
Thank you so much, Governor. As a budget gal, this bill was brought forward to us really just as a conversation earlier on in the Joint Budget Committee. There were rebates that that were coming into the state for these very necessary drugs, but those dollars weren't going directly to people living with HIV or AIDS. And we really wanted to make sure that we could streamline once again the process. So again, it's not a super sexy bill, but it is a bill that will directly impact people's lives every single day, because we'll make sure that those funds are going directly to the services that people living with HIV and AIDS deserve and need in this state. So although it's not flashy and it's really not a headline, it is a way to really start protecting people and making sure that we are doing all that we can for all Coloradans living with HIV and AIDS. So thank you, Governor, for signing this today. I like to call it an accounting bill, but it's something that will definitely save lives. I'll hand it over to my other budget buddy, Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Representative Escar. I completely agree that this is a small change, but an incredibly impactful one, making sure that the funds actually reach those community organizations that are serving folks with HIV and AIDS and have immunodeficiency conditions. And so this bill flew under the radar. It didn't get a lot of discussion, but it's going to be incredibly impactful in making sure that those organizations have the money to serve the people that they serve. So thank you, Governor, and let's get this thing signed.
Thanks to the center. We really appreciate hosting this, and thanks for bearing with us in this inclement weather, but we waited 15 minutes and it got better. So thank you.